It's not enough to just be an architect, a creative professional. The real question is, what are you doing? How are you making an impact if you don't know how to answer that question, or you feel too overwhelmed, stressed out, or burned out to even think about it? I'll help you get beyond the status quo trap in our profession to get inspired again. If you're ready, let's get architecting. Hey, Bright Lights, welcome to season 6. Yes, 6 of Architecting. It is the birthday of this podcast, which I started way back in January 4th of 2021. Back then, I was looking to provide raw honesty about the ways our profession could support us. Because even though it sounds really audacious, isn't it really our role to, in whatever way we can, make the world a better place? Design has an impact, and we can't get in our own way. Self-sabotage, systemic codependency in our industry. Really wanted to talk about all these things that we all need to be focusing on, and no one else was. And almost immediately when I launched the podcast, I started hearing from those of you in the audience, hearing things like, it's like you're inside my head. Oh my God, I've felt this way and I've never heard anyone else talk about it. But as time has gone on, the podcast has really evolved, and I've come to really land on this idea of success on your own terms. As I have looked at what it takes to be at your full creative potential, to be doing game-changing work, what I most saw was that it was less about the prestigious project you could or couldn't work on, or the title that you had, or the kind of firm you might work for. What it really was about was whether you felt you had the agency to explore the work you felt called to do. The kind of things that were no matter what, non-negotiables. And when we can unblock all the reasons we're not doing that work, and we can focus on it, we can't help but be successful. And not only will we be successful in all of the outward facing ways, but we will feel really good about ourselves. Most of all, we won't be stressed out, overwhelmed, or burned out because the work we do is energizing. That is really the key to success. And many of those episodes were interviews, and I noticed that same pattern in the people that I talked to. Success on your own terms is what unlocks things. It's what makes you go from good to great. And it's been 312 episodes now. I did have some mini-sodes that first year that I kind of made a sub-number, so the official number is a little higher than the way I've been tracking the episodes. But yes, this will be episode 312. I couldn't be more excited. Architecting has truly become a community. And I'm beyond grateful to have you as part of it, whether you're an OG listener or this is your first listen. I'm so glad that you are here. You truly are my bright lights who are shining out and making a difference, and we're in this together. A lot of people in January like to make New Year's resolutions, but I do not believe in doing that. What I like to do instead is focus on having clear intentions. There's brain science behind this, something called the reticular activating system in our brain. And I won't go into all the science of that now, but in the simplest terms, it means that your brain acts like a search engine. There are millions of pieces of data that your senses are picking up all the time. But what gets kept and brought to your conscious awareness versus what gets discarded is happening through the reticular activating system. It means your brain's going to pay attention to the things you tell it to. When you are clear about your intention, by doing what I like to do, which is picking a word for the year. It's a really powerful way to keep the concept, everything that word represents to you, top of mind in your awareness. Now, my word of the year for this year is choice. The reason for that is because it's important to me to always remember that we have the power to change the outcome of any situation. Every single day is our starting line. What makes the difference from being somewhere we don't love being to somewhere we will are the choices that we make. I also thought it was really fitting that choice is associated with the number 6. It is the Lovers or Choice card in the tarot deck. And when we look at the numerology of the number 6, it's associated with caretaking, empathy, service to others, idealism, protection, deep empathy. And isn't that really what we do? Isn't that really what our role as architects is? Plus, we are starting season 6. So I love the serendipity of this. I did not choose the word choice because of it being the 6th year, but that is a happy accident and I will take it. So I want you to choose your own word of the year. And your word should be something that resonates with what you want to cultivate over 2026. But I'm going to help you understand how this works by breaking down some of the ways I'm going to work with the word choice over the next year. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to celebrate the wins more. For example, Architecting is an award-winning podcast. In 2025, Build magazine contacted me and said that the podcast had been chosen to be featured as their best architecture podcast of 2025. A podcast aggregator called Millions of Podcasts told me that I made over 12 different rankings in their system. Some of the highlights of that were that Architecting is number 5 out of the best 20 women in architecture podcasts, number 6 in best 30 architectural education podcasts, number 7 in best 20 women in design podcasts, number 16 in best 100 architecture podcasts, and number 16 in best 100 lifestyle design podcasts. And you guys, they look at every podcast and what its topics are and what the listenership is, what the engagement is. So I have to really thank you that this podcast stood out in so many of these categories. Also, according to Listen Notes, which is a podcast platform, but also ranking system that has real-time updates, Architecting has a listen score of 30 and a top 5% global rank. This podcast was downloaded in 93 different countries in just 2025. Again, that is thanks to all of you. I really appreciate that. That kind of thing is what lets a website like Volume Zero listed as number 1 in an article on Best Podcasts for Architects on Spotify and get so many great rankings on Spotify. Spotify Wrapped even named the podcast a rising star, a marathon show, and a talked about show. And then we go to the guests. It was always my intention to have about 20% of the episodes feature a guest, but this year it's been unprecedented. I've had agents for people contacting me, trying to get their clients booked on the show. You probably noticed in late 2025, there were a lot more interview episodes, and that's going to continue in 2026 because I just have so many people that want to be on the show and want to tell their story. That's just one way that I'm celebrating the wins. But there's so many others. So look at your own life too. We tend to be perfectionists. We tend to do something and be hypercritical of it. We tend to focus on what we don't yet have and not what we just accomplished. So one of the important ways I'm going to use choice this year is choosing to celebrate the wins. The next way that choice is going to get activated for me this year is understanding that I can rise above. I can be more discerning. And when something is no longer servicing me, either because it isn't a healthy situation or it's a situation I've evolved beyond, that I can choose to say goodbye to it. I don't have to stay in situations that are draining my energy or that are not the highest and best use of my time. And then the last way that I am really going to focus on choice is giving up control. If you are a recovering control freak like me, you know that control is about being able to create certainty. That's usually because you are afraid of what will happen if the situation isn't predictable. But control is the opposite of choice. It's when we try to bend a situation to our will. It's like pulling open a flower instead of waiting for it to bloom. It's pushy energy that's repellent to other people and exhausting for us. And the weird thing is, control makes it harder for us to get what we want. Crazy, right? Because we think we have to interfere and manipulate and tinker and interfere in order to control an outcome, when the truth is we live in a world where everything is about people. First, they have to like you. It's all about your network and your relationships, and other people are beyond our control. We wouldn't even really want to control them because then they wouldn't be choosing us. We couldn't trust that they actually appreciated or liked us for who we were if we were coercing how they felt about us. When you think about that, it's really profound, and you understand that when we can embrace choice instead, we can recognize that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay not to be liked. You're not for everyone. There's so much freedom and possibilities, outcomes you might not even have thought about versus the outcome that you are driving so hard for when you're trying to control everything. And best of all, when you're not a control freak, you have a lot less stress. You can accept what happens as what is meant to be, as what is just the next step, instead of having this big emotional attachment to it only turning out a certain way. You can be more flexible because obviously if you're a control freak, you're a pretty rigid thinker there, and you're not willing to grow or to adapt to situations as they unfold or to learn. Instead, you're trying to put things into your mold. What are we missing when we do that? That control freak mindset, that is driven by fear. And it might not seem that way, but it really is. When we want to control, it's because we want to have power. We want to feel sure about the outcome instead of embracing change. When we want to control, we want to be perfectionists, which means that we think there's only one right way. And it's harder for us to appreciate what other people bring to the table, other ways of doing things, other perspectives. We get really judgmental. We get really critical. That just makes us inflexible, not understanding, not empathetic. So some of the ways that I'm going to be working on shifting from control to choice is to start to be a little bit more conscious of what is outside of my control. You know, you might have heard that phrase, keep your side of the street clean, act in integrity, do what you need to do, and don't try to manage what isn't yours to control. We all are guilty of taking on responsibility for other people when their choices, again that word, are none of our business, even if we think they're making a bad choice. It's their lesson to learn, their experience to have. It's not for us to micromanage them. That's a tough one because a lot of times we want to go into that almost parental mode where we think we know better than everybody else and we want to intervene, try to tell other people what to do and how to do it, instead of giving them the agency to make their own choices and deal with the good or bad consequences of those choices. I'm also going to work on challenging perfectionism. That is something that is truly a struggle, feeling like you're not good enough, that if it wasn't perfect, that somehow you have failed, or that you have to work to earn respect from other people, love from other people, regard from other people. When the truth is, you just need to be yourself. If you are trying so hard to do what you think is going to make other people happy, which is a root cause of perfectionism, it's perfect to who, right? That's what we have to really focus on. Perfect to who? Somebody else. We want to be seen favorably in some way, either as a good worker, a good person to hire, a good person to be friends with, a good person to be in a romantic relationship with, a good family member, a good parent, whatever that is. And so we have this view of what perfect looks like through somebody else's standards, right? So we're checking all these boxes on someone else's list, and we need to let go of that. That is something that often happens involuntarily because we just accept those external checklists and we're constantly measuring ourselves against them and we're constantly feeling that we come up short. Becoming aware of that is the first step to challenging perfectionism. Hand in hand with that is being more fully present. When we are a control freak, we're either worrying about something that happened in the past and over-analyzing it, breaking it down, thinking of all the woulda, coulda, shoulda things, or we're worrying about what could happen in the future. And in the process, we miss truly enjoying the present moment and savoring life. The last thing that I'm going to be focusing in my year of choice is seeking options. Understanding that the way you've always done it doesn't have to be the way you do it today. Being more willing to experiment, being more willing to leave things up to chance and let them unfold. Thinking and constantly asking, what else could it be? That is really what seeking the options are, because when we have choice, we can always do something different. I wish you all a happy 2026. Thank you so much for being part of the architecting community. I have a great season ahead, some amazing interviews that I've had that I can't wait to debut for you over the coming months. And also some great new classes. Definitely going to want to sign up for my leadership challenge, which is on now. And it is super easy to do. It is 12, 15-minute audio sessions. So you can listen to it in your car while you're on a walk at the gym. Everybody has 12 minutes. And you can do it at your own pace. It is not a live class, so you can go to the website, architectingpodcast.com. You can sign up and you can start it today if that's what you want to do. It's a great way to kick off the year. When we think about our careers, when we think about our creative fulfillment, a lot of it does come down to leadership. And leadership is a skill that I have noticed is sorely lacking in our industry. And that's because our education doesn't prepare us to lead. It prepares us to be good architects. Engineers learn how to be good engineers. Contractors learn how to do that job and those skill sets well. but none of us get taught how to be good leaders. And because it's a creative profession, because we do have all of this systemic codependency going on, we suffer. A lot of people I talk to have scars, I know I do, from poor leaders. That becomes our template. We don't know how to be better. And that is why I am offering this class. Even if you don't have aspirations of owning your own firm or being a partner, it's just good information, no matter where you are in your career, what your actual role is on a project in some capacity. You are a leader. And when you know how to be an effective leader, it changes the game. It can reverse toxic dynamics. It can improve your relationships with other people, whether they're on your team or they're your client or they're other people within the industry. So if you would like to give your career a boost this year and reframe a lot of things that I'm willing to bet you're probably frustrated with today that don't have to be that way, you're going to want to get in on this leadership challenge and learn some of these simple game-changing strategies that will reframe so much for you. Thanks again for being part of the architecting community, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you want even more content, head on over to architectingpodcast.com and subscribe to my newsletter and get some great free downloads while you're there. Be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram at Architecting Podcast, Facebook and LinkedIn pages are Architecting, and the YouTube channel Architecting Podcast. Stay inspired.